Everyone is talking about AI agents, but very few are running them in production. Teams are experimenting, launching pilots, running demos, but then getting stuck. In this episode, I'm joined by Giovanni Carraro, who's Senior Vice President of Global Strategic Alliances at Kyndryl. And he's going to unpack why that gap exists and what it really takes to close it. We talk about what changes when AI systems go from analysis to autonomy, why traditional governance often breaks down, and how enterprises can make agentic AI trustworthy, secure, and observable at scale. So if you're trying to move beyond AI experiments into real-world operations, this conversation's for you. So let's dive in. Hello, Giovanni. How are you this morning?
Very well. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for giving us your time today. So could you tell us a little bit about Kyndryl, especially what it does in association with Microsoft and what your role in all of that is?
Sure. So we are one of the largest IT infrastructure service provider in the world, and we provide and we manage some of the most mission critical systems that the world economy really depends on. So running some of the largest IT system that governs the financial sectors, whether it's in travel, for airlines, or some of the system that handles the manufacturing system, in manufacturing. What I do, I run for Kyndryl the Global Strategic Alliances, which is one of the strategic imperative and priority of the company. And really, alliances was one of the reasons for becoming an independent company. The history of Kyndryl, we spun out of IBM, as we're part of the services arm of IBM, the product company. But one of the reasons for becoming independent was to be able to establish business and provide services on other technology, such as Microsoft, that were becoming more and more important for our clients as they went through some of the secular trend, where there was a digital transformation, the move to the cloud, the adoption of AI. As I said, run the Global Strategic Alliances business, and one of the key strategic alliance, actually the very first alliances that Kyndryl signed as literally within hours of days of becoming an independent company has been with Microsoft, right, and the business that we're doing with them.
Okay, great. So before we dig a little bit deeper into those specific alliances that you have with Microsoft, let's just talk about AI in general, because we're hearing a lot in the news at the moment about AI projects failing or not delivering on the return on investment that CEOs are expecting. So what do you see are the biggest challenges for organizations that are going from maybe piloting AI projects and actually moving them into production environments successfully?
Yes, I would say that our data and our analysis and research that we have done shows that I think about 75, 76% of the enterprises are kind of like trapped in that proof of concept, kind of like pilot purgatory, whatever so like we want to, the words we want to use. But the idea is that they're never able to kind of like move beyond this kind of like experimentation phase into production. And there are definitely several kind of like challenges, I think, related to that one. First of all, it's really around the infrastructure that they have and really where the data it resides. I mean, it's easy to do a pilot. You just extract a sample of the data. You have a highly curated set of data. But when you go into production, a lot of the data is still very much silos. Some of the system of records are not necessarily technologies that are, they're great at recording, but not necessarily great at analytics. They're system of records, not system of insights, I would say. And so they kind of like as the set of challenges, and that obviously moves on into the readiness of the not just the infrastructure and the technology aspect to be on an AI kind of like ready scenario, but also peoples and processes, obviously not speed. And so that's where we have spent a lot of our focus, and with our agentic AI framework, really trying to kind of like create a philosophy that is really an architecture and is built on a lot of also Microsoft technology that think about it, how do we ingest how we build, kind of like deploy, how we govern, how we monitor. It's really kind of like an end-to-end approach to that one. Really to try to ease our customers into this transition. As I alluded before, obviously, move to AI is a key secular trend, and we hear clients coming to us and say, I know I need to go there, but help me getting there. Help me get my infrastructure, help me get my data ready, help me get kind of like my entire organization ready to adopt and to scale AI.
So if I understood correctly, a couple of the major challenges seem to be that if you test a project in some pre-production environment, that the data doesn't, or the way the data is organized there doesn't necessarily reflect how it is in production, that it's maybe siloed and it's hard to access because it's all siloed off, and maybe the format of that data isn't necessarily suitable for analysis.
Yeah, so let me try to give a fairly simple example, but I think each one of us can probably relate. We all went through high school at some point in our life. And if you think about it, either high school or if you take a scientific subject in college, there are always those nice problem sets that, think about it, they're easy. You have the data there. You normally even you have some numerical if it's kind of like a math or a physics kind of like type of problem set. You have data that is also an easy formula. So you normally have easy ratio. You have a 6/2, not a 135/37. So you have something similar, kind of like, because it's set up to test your understanding of the problem, the subject, not really to be a computational wizard.
Right.
When you move into the real world, you know a lot of these subjects, but all of a sudden the first question is like, what is the data? What is the data point? And sometimes you even have situation where, wait a minute, I have two values for the same data point. Which one is the most recent one? Which one is the corrupted one? Which one is the correct one? Which one is the up-to-date? Which one is what is the lineage of the data to say that I can put confidence that that's the data point? Now, that's the simplistic view, just to kind of like grasp one of the challenges that is there. But if you take that to a much broader scale, all of a sudden, we all know that AI is as good as the data that you train the model and you feed in there.
Yep. So rubbish in, rubbish out, essentially.
Garbage in, garbage out, correct.
Yeah.
But now we're moving to a world where agents are becoming the evolution of automation. So it's no longer just a chatbot that is an agent that takes an action. The ability to have confidence that is the right action starts with the ability of knowing that it is because the data is correct at the start of the funnel. And so you see that that's kind of like when you do a pilot, normally it's a highly curated subset of the data. It's, to me, is the analogy of the high school, of the college kind of like problem set. You're testing that the model works. You go into the real world, all of a sudden, well, you have all your data. Some of it, as I said before, is in silos, broken down by system. How do you kind of like get hold of, kind of like, and manage that complexity is the first barrier that a lot of our clients obviously face.
I think that's a very good analogy, the high school test. I like that a lot. It makes it very easy to understand as well. And I guess the data, you could also think of it like the foundation of a building. You know, if it's, soft and crumbles, then your building is going to collapse. So I guess that's a great way of looking at it. So how does Kyndryl's AI agentic framework help to solve those problems?
Yes, so I mean, the framework, as I said, it's a technical architecture. It sits on top of Microsoft Fabric. We kind of like have a series of steps. It's a fairly methodical approach that we take. I mean, we have an agentic ingestion where we map the business logic first. I mean, everything has to, not the technology for itself, is within kind of like addressing a business need, an objective from a business perspective that the client's trying to do. And then we have an agent builder, where we obviously use blueprints, kind of like pre-built. So we're not starting from scratch, but we're kind of like helping us out to jumpstart and using some proven kind of like technology, agent kind of like blueprints that we know can succeed. And then I think there is the element, obviously, because I go back, you need to have confidence in this one. That is what we call agentic core. That is, how do you manage these agents? It's kind of like the traffic controller that allows you to, as I said, manage control, but gain confidence. Ultimately, I think confidence is a critical element that we need in the system, because ultimately we will, as I said, we will have agents by definition, they do stuff. It's no longer just a chatbot or a next best action kind of like tool that recommends recommendations. Right? This is we're going into an agentic kind of like world. So I think that's important. So a framework that really allows to take a methodical approach through a proper architecture, taking advantage of all the best technology that our technology alliances such as Microsoft provide, and build from there.
So you mentioned, we need to be confident that we're using the right data set and the integrity of that data, of course. So if we're going to rely on agents to automate certain things for the business, that obviously has its advantages, assuming that it's taking actions that make sense, but it also introduces some new risk, I guess. So how do we govern that entire system to make sure that it is actually doing what we expect it to be doing?
Yes, in the framework, and thanks for the question. So kind of allows me to expand a little bit more. We also kind of like embed and put adds kind of like what we call digital trust, and it's kind of like, probably the best analogy is like an ID that again, something similar that everybody can understand. I mean, we all have an ID and a badge that allows us to badge into, say, certain floors of a building and gives us certain particular access to what we are authorized in a sense to be. And I think that is so like the same analogy that we have digital trust in the AI agentic framework, kind of like, and from the perspective, it's really a digital passport for every AI agent. And so it tells basically the agent, you can access this data, you cannot access that data. So again, limit the control and allows and put kind of like that level of governance that you can say that the agent is acting based on the right input that he should be allowed to leverage, and is not kind of like taking anything that he's not supposed to. In a very simplest way. So using kind of like the ID badge analogy, I think it's good to kind of like give it there, because I think we have to sort of like seeing that these agents are, in my mind, not just software. It's almost like a digital co-worker, a digital workforce that will interact side by side with a human, and we're probably going to take a more active approach into some of the tasks where the humans are like taking more an oversight and control and governance kind of like area.
Right. So I know that you've been working on various projects with Microsoft over the last 12 months or so. And I think last year you developed an acceleration hub in conjunction with Microsoft. So can you tell us a little bit about what's in that and how it helps to accelerate enterprises through to a successful AI deployment?
Yes, so obviously, first and foremost, our acceleration hub is made of some of our consultants, our professionals, our engineers, obviously skill certified on individuals, on obviously technology and competencies, primarily obviously of Microsoft, but also some of the other technology that live in the Microsoft ecosystem. I think one of the importance of our alliance with Microsoft is not just kind of like what we do together, but what we do with the ecosystem of, I don't know how many, kind of like a lot of kind of like companies that either service providers, software company that live in the say on Azure or built kind of on Azure. So that's kind of like the first step, is really allowing us to play that sort of like orchestrator that seamlessly integrate all these various technology running on the Azure platform to really deliver an outcome and for our clients, and provide a solution that addresses a business need. Obviously, within this hub, so capabilities is the starting point. But it's not kind of like only that. We also have the ability to accelerate kind of like with industry expertise. As we started building our Kindle Consult organization, we started adding up capabilities based on industry, which is also something that we know is complementary and helpful to what Microsoft is doing to really bring that industry lens into a specifically crafted solution. And then obviously last but not least, as I said, our kind of like areas is it's not just about showcasing a showroom of technologies, but it's really going back prototyping, building, deploying, and then delivering. And so that's what we have been doing. So really supporting the build outs of new solutions, again, specific for the certain industry on technologies with Microsoft, and then scale it and deploy it to clients.
So people watching this podcast are going to be quite interested in how Kyndryl is using Microsoft's technologies. So could you give us a little bit of insight? I think I know that you're an analytics guy from what I read. A little bit of insight into how you're using Microsoft's platforms to help organizations get insight, observability, and trust into everything that's happening with these automated AI solutions.
Yeah, so let me kind of like give an example of our deployments. I can think of a retail solution. We work with a major retailer for a seasonal kind of like campaign. So using the Agentic framework to optimize their seasonal marketing. I mean, retailers, kind of like go through kind of like that process. And so instead of having a team of analysts taking weeks to segment the data, analyze sentiment, kind of like try to correlate that one to inventory level or predict inventory level in real time to what would need it, really deploy everything in a much faster kind of like way, leveraging agents and really helping our client increase kind of like the upsell opportunity on their end. And so the ability kind of like to run these campaigns, to have the right kind of like, okay, what's most likely to be sold with that product, with some other, so the upsell kind of like recommendation engine, and really do it in real time, taking the feedback and kind of like continues to sort of like improve it as it goes, rather than going through the old model that would be, you sort of like plan for something, you deploy, and then you see at the end of, say, the winter season, how it performed. And so real kind of like that real time adjustment. I think that was a pretty interesting kind of like way of combining the analytics, the agentic kind of like aspect, and the technology. Another example in the logistics, large kind of like logistic company, was literally drowning on numbers of customer support emails. And so we built a generative AI solution, kind of like to use it was 4 or 5 tier system, can't remember exactly, but kind of like a tiering system. So it's not just about sorting the emails, but starting to draft a response, start to kind of like based on what was the problem, the customer moods, the tone of the note, and really reduce and facilitate the human aspect of, and so being more responsive, and so drastically remove reduce the response time and improve the customer satisfaction. So try to kind of like address that one and facilitate obviously the handling of what was an overwhelming amount of emails that were coming through.
Okay, I think I could use that solution. Thank you very much. So you talked a little bit about the retail example, and I assume that would be a huge amount of data that analysts would have needed to work with. Maybe with this system, or maybe with whatever system they were using in the past, there might have been a dashboard that displayed some of that information and was intended to provide some kind of insight. But I know that some organizations really struggle to go from that kind of graphical representation of, in principle, insights into the data and actually taking action on it. So how does AI and what you're implementing help move beyond just presenting that information, but actually making, real impactful use of it, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, no, so I think it's a valid questions that, at the end of the day, each organization is sort of like going through an evolution journey. That we have seen it even in the industry in itself. What you're describing with dashboarding, in a sense, is the descriptive analytics that probably started, 15, 20 years ago with companies like Cognos and Business Objects that were at the forefront. And progressively, we have seen kind of like that evolution and the ability to provide more intelligence to move from a purely backward-looking descriptive way of what were the data to try to move into a predictive, then prescriptive, and now really actionable kind of like area. Now, obviously the technology goes through that kind of like movement, but ultimately, to me, the client, it's a people and processes kind of like journey that they have to go through. It's not just about deploying a technology that can do it. It's really continuing to evolve and adapt the internal business processes to truly take advantage of the potential that the technology can deliver. And I think you touched correctly, some of the biggest hurdles sometimes are on the people front, really gaining, first and foremost, the confidence that it's no longer kind of like my analysis, so to speak, or a team of individual analysis that I can control, that I can trust. I need to put trust now into an agent in a system. And so I go back kind of like to the comments I was saying up front, the importance of having kind of like this digital trust, this governance systems, kind of like this ability to infuse confidence, because that's ultimately what allows to take advantage of an action and say, yes, we're going to make sure that the action is deployed. It's followed through. And that's more, I said, as a people and processes, not just a technology. And that's why I think our consultative approach that is also iterative, because we always say that we do a run, transform kind of like cycle. So it's an iterative and continuous improvement approach that you understand, you kind of like, we run a system, you kind of like improved it, you understand kind of like you help the organization move and adopt, and that set the starting point for the next kind of like level of transformation and progress into that one. That's why I think it's much longer kind of like term, and in fact we have very long lasting relationship with our clients because it kind of makes an iterative approach.
Right. So what we're saying is essentially that, okay, the dashboard might still be there, but let's say you've got some changing data over here, then you've got an agent interpreting that change and then deploying an action automatically. So it's essentially like a continuous optimization, responding to what's happening.
And I would say, to me, what I would refer to is I see the AI as an evolution, not a revolution, if you allow me kind of like the two words or a little bit of a construct. Agentic AI is an evolution in the sense of automation that is built on a set of data that is provided there. And again, we're moving from a chatbot, then an agent that does something. But again, it's incremental. And so, yes, the dashboarding that you're referring to will still be there, providing the insights, maybe also now showing the predictive elements. And so you have not just the backward looking, this is the data and characterized, but showing that one. And then you have sort of like the recommendation engine that kind of like say, this is what should be. And then certain ones kind of like are also acted upon. And so it's this evolutionary element. And I can see a progression that as the confidence rises on these agents and as bot as their knowledge increases as they get better refined. I mean, let's remember that some of these things get better with time, with more data that allows you to kind of like continue to tweak and adjust. It'll get kind of like that evolution continues to move forward. But as I said, more on an evolution than, as I said, a revolution.
Right. So you touched a little bit upon the human element sometimes being the reason why these projects fail rather than the technology itself. So this AI as we know it today at least is relatively new, I think we could say. But what cultural shifts do you think an organization needs to undertake to really make all of this a success?
Yes, well, there is inevitably an element of change and learning and familiarity from the individual's perspective, kind of like upskilling. I don't see an antagonistic kind of like relationship between, I know that some people kind of like talk about a potential kind of like element in that one. No, I see the complementarity and the AI and the agentic AI really taking the ability and being at their best, but at the same of doing kind of like tasks autonomously and repeatedly, monotonous kind of like element there. Allowing the human being, I think, to thrive and do what they are best at doing, which is the creativity element and kind of like the oversight and the nuances of the unpredictability of kind of like stuff like that one. I think that's where, so like that ability to complement. And I am convinced that it'll be, I would say, the most successful business professionals of the future are the ones that leverage AI, that uses AI.
Yep.
I don't see them as an issue that, humans will be replaced by AI. No, not in that factor. I think some task which will be replaced by AI, which I think will be beneficial, like we have seen with other innovation across the history of the world that has come in and has definitely made improvement. And with that also created different type of jobs and activities for the human beings. As I said, I think that it would be very important to continue to upskill and adopt, become familiar both of an individual level. I mean, using AI ourselves for task and something, and then figure it out progressively how that can be also used in enterprise and business processes at large. I think right now we're still a little bit in the experimentation phase. As I said before, a lot of it, as I mentioned before, some of the challenges are moving out of the POC, but it's also like trying to understand what are the capabilities and where does all of these technology go. And we have been using right now, I think, the technology to automate tasks that were done by human beings. I think that over time we will see agents collaborating with agents, and we'll start seeing kind of like more of that interaction and the ability to also create new business models altogether. So it'd be an interesting kind of like journey what lies ahead.
Yeah, I also see it kind of somewhat like that on a personal level, that AI is something that hopefully is going to allow people to evolve to doing maybe more meaningful jobs rather than a lot of the mundane stuff that they might have to do in order just to get any kind of result today. So yeah, but I understand people are scared, but
it's inevitable. I think it's part of it is a little bit of the unknown. Part of it is learning and getting familiar. I mean, I used it myself. I use kind of like Copilot, saying kind of like, and some of the other also technology, obviously try to both learn and build agents, build model, kind of like try to be kind of like familiar myself with that one as I see that it's coming kind of like kind of through. And it'll be interesting to kind of like see all the advancement in technology that is going to come. Ultimately, I think that we have to start thinking, I probably mentioned it earlier, the idea of a digital co-worker. And so there are agents and there are humans kind of like, and we'll need to sort of like think about how we manage these agents as really a digital workforce that participate in the activities and the processes of an enterprise.
Yeah. So what would you say to a company that's kind of very early on its AI journey? Considering the successes and failures that you've seen, what should it do to try and hopefully guarantee some kind of success?
Yeah, so it might be trivial answer, but the first thing that I would say is start with the basics and the fundamentals. And going back to your analogy of the house before, you need to build on solid foundations. And so the idea of having kind of like the right infrastructure, the right data, something that obviously allows you to start with the right foot and then start on small and start kind of like with a progressive one step at a time evolution, not try to kind of like boil the ocean altogether. And so adopt quickly, get familiar, and then build on progressively one success over the next one, and mature and go through that kind of like maturity journey that not just the enterprise, but the individuals, the professionals, the processes needs to continue to evolve and adapt. I think this one is a marathon, not a sprint, if you allow me kind of like a sports analogy, where it's not about rushing the first mile and then burn out and miserably fail. It's to literally go the distance of the 42 kilometers that the marathon is, and really try to kind of like get through the lengths, and recognizing that it's built up on a series of small steps, one after the other one. Obviously, the foundation of the infrastructure is key. Starting with the right data at the end of the day is the most important element. We're not short of data at this point. As an economy, as a world, a lot of the companies have built repositories for decades. I mean, there is a lot of data. The question is using the data efficiently and effectively, and using the right set of data to train the model to do the right thing, and go from there. And then let the employee population kind of like go through the transformation on the people and the processes at the same time.
Right. Okay, thanks very much, Giovanni. So where should people go to find out more about where they might start on this AI journey? Obviously, Kyndryl.com, but is there anywhere more specific?
We have several pages inside that one. We have dedicated pages with alliances that we do with Microsoft. Within kind of like link there, we have examples of and references also, public reference with clients of what we have done successfully. We have more detailed explanation about kind of like our framework and all the things that we do for our customer. I would definitely start there. It's good kind of like resource of information. But thank you for allowing me to pitch our webpage.
Okay, no problem, of course. Yep. So do go and check out that information if you're either have already started your journey or are thinking about starting your journey. If you're involved in that, I'm sure there's lots of very useful stuff there to go and check out. Very interesting conversation. Thanks, Giovanni. I can't wait to see personally where all of this AI stuff is going to take us over the next few years. I think it's very exciting. It's a very exciting time to be involved in technology. So that's great.
Thank you. No, I really appreciated the time and the conversation. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. It's been a lovely conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thanks everybody for watching today's episode, and we'll see you next time.